Meeting of the Community Services Committee, 22nd of January 2025. So item number one, apologies.
Yes, Chair, I've received one apology from Councillor Jamie Burrows, who's apologised because he had to attend a meeting.
Thank you. I received an apology from Councillor Jane Ray, who has childcare issues. Do we resolve to accept those apologies? Thank you. Okay, item number two, declaration of interests. I'll go first on this, if that's okay. I'll declare a non-pecuniary interest in item 7.8, which is an item relating to Harpenden Cricket Club. As I've said before, my husband is the treasurer at the club. So Patrick has agreed to take over the chair, and I'll leave the room when we get to that item. Has anybody else got any non-pecuniary or pecuniary interests in items on the agenda? Item 3, Chair's report and urgent items. I don't have a report. What about you, Phil?
There are no urgent items, Chair.
Thank you. Moving to agenda item 4, public questions in accordance with Standing Orders 20.
We haven't received any, Chair.
Thank you. Item 5, the minutes of the meeting on the 13th of November. Has everyone had a chance to have a look at those? And are there any comments or observations relating to that? You, Officer Simon.
Chair.
Thank you. Item 5, wasn't it? So item 6, the minutes of other meetings refer to the Community Services Committee, which is to receive the minutes of the Arts and Cultural Working Party of the 26th of November, and to receive the minutes of the Allotments Working Party held on the 27th of November 2024. Any comments anyone would like to make about that, or we're happy to receive? Okay, thank you. Right, let's move to agenda item 7.1, the forward planner and resolution tracker, which you'll find on page 11. Philip, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Usual standing item for committee to look at, and the same is being asked of the committee as on previous meetings, which is to note the forward planner and tracker and approve the removal from the tracker of those resolutions marked as complete. Just a couple of comments in relation to what's on the forward plan for March. Parva Close basketball will be brought back and the Green Loop will be brought back, both of which featured at the last meeting.
Okay. Thank you. Any comments from councillors or observations? Anything you'd like to make? No? Okay, so the committee is off to note and approves the forward planner attached at Appendix A, and note the resolution tracker attached to Appendix B, and approve the removal of those resolutions marked complete. In favour? Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 7.2, the budgetary control for 2024-25, which you'll find on page 18. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This report presents the actual expenditure and income position as of the 30th of November 2024, or month 8. The net costs for the committee show a favourable variance of 36,811. In essence, this is the same material variances as was discussed at the past 2 previous meetings. The Town Ranger team vacancy, which has been kept vacant while we monitor the first year operations of the Town Ranger team, so that we can ensure that the correct resource is recruited is behind the favourable £26,000. And there are minor variances in vehicle repair costs, utilities and business rates that make up for the remaining expenditure variances.
Okay, thank you. Has anybody got any questions for Philip on that? David, are you okay? I'm looking.
No, because it didn't stop. Certainly, I wondered what we were getting from the banking hub. Are we, is it something we've donated the generosity of our hearts? Or are we getting an income from the post office?
Yes, it's a good question. So
Okay.
we didn't, Chair, we didn't embark on the interim hub to bring in any income, but they do give us a modest amount each month to cover costs, which more than does. So it's between £1,000 and £1,500 a month they provide for us. That more than covers any electric bill or anything like that that's required. So that does bring in a small income, which isn't reflected in the in-year budget here. It's
Yes,
favourable variance beyond that. Yeah, so and that's obviously a 12-month arrangement. So around about 12 grand we'd expect to get if the interim hub remains here for 12 months. So that's added income. And Chair, just to reflect on that, the banking hub's actually going really, really well, the interim hub today. So I think it's important to manage expectations when we set these new things up, particularly when you launch it before Christmas, deliberately, because we wanted to get going on it, frankly. So in most places, when they get a banking hub announced, there's normally quite a lag, of up to 12 months before people see anything happening. So one of the reasons we were really keen to ensure that we set up the interim hub was to start bridging that gap in sort of lack of services locally. So we've had 482 visits to the banking hub since it opened. That was up to a couple of days ago. Really interestingly, around about 320 of those have been since the 6th of January, which is really trending in a really good direction. This week, hopefully some of you may have received it already. There's another flyer that's going out to.
I was just going to ask.
Yes, it's gone out to 25,000 households
Right.
across Harpenden and the surrounding villages, and we're seeing real sort of uptick. So we're up to close to about 40 visits a day, which is pretty good. Yeah. And the really nice thing about it is almost everybody, the vast 99.9% of people speak really highly of what they can do, and speak highly of the fact that otherwise they either weren't being able to carry out the banking services they would like to, or they were having to go off to, in some cases, Welwyn Garden City or further afield to meet their needs. So it's been a real success so far. But the permanent hub is crucial. We are working to try to secure a permanent location. But from our perspective, the interim hub is here for as long as it needs to be here. Really, but so far, so good.
Is there any feedback of what sort of services? What are the most common services that are being used?
Yeah. So we're capturing that data every day. So the biggest ones are cash and cheque deposits.
Oh, right.
That's one of the biggest ones. We are seeing a number of sort of small businesses coming in, and some charities, which is really positive. And I think once people start to realise some of the things we offer here will be a lot quicker than going to the post office and standing in a queue there. And once we're kind of getting into over that Christmas period, the word of mouth spreading, the wider comms landing, I think we're going to just see an increase in convenience. One of the really nice things is actually the social element. So a lot of the sort of the demographic of people that are coming in are also having a chat about other things. Yeah. And that's quite useful. They're asking, our bell is ringing a lot more than it used to, and they're asking about other things. So, we're able to help with bus passes and all other stuff going. So it's a real success.
Oh, right.
For a very limited impact to the town council. It's great. It's great to have a buzz in the foyer down there. It's so far so good.
Great.
Thank you.
It's something the town council said it was committed to delivering and you've done it. I can't say more than that. Excellent.
Great, thank you for that question, David. Is there any other questions or comments on the budgetary control report?
Just had one more point to make.
Okay,
Chair,
yeah,
if I could.
absolutely.
Just note on the list on page 21 is the storage depot. So just to confirm that as of 18 minutes past 4 on Monday afternoon, we now own the storage depot after what feels like about 9 years.
Yes.
So that's really important for the town council, of course, for this committee, because most of the areas that you oversee, the depot is absolutely crucial to our operation. So what you will see in future of these reports is that 243,000 disappearing off this list because it's now spent.
Okay, great.
Something to store in it.
We need another depot looking in it, actually. It's already jumped over.
Okay. So just to clarify, we are the committee is asked to note the report and note the release of the reserves set out in Appendix A. Okay, thank you. So moving on now to agenda item 7.3, public realm, the floral displays. So we'll find that on page 23. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. HMC no longer has a floral displays contractor, and it's necessary to find a new, far more sustainable way of delivering high quality, attractive public realm displays. I think it's worth commenting that the contractors did a very good job of delivering what they were required to over the number of years that they did it for. But also looking forward now, we have to recognise that did result in 42,000 plants being discarded annually. I think the report also highlights the intensity of the resources that have been involved in providing what the town has had over the last few years. And we need to change the way that we deliver those displays to reduce that intensity. So this outlines a proposal for attractive, low maintenance, freestanding flower displays, which, like our low maintenance summer barrier baskets, would be very impactful visually. It also describes some changes that are proposed to some of the beds in the town, which includes two of the large ones on Church Green, which, with the advice of our very knowledgeable Green Spaces Development officers, we would turn into a mixture of shrubs and perennials rather than plants that need planting twice a year and discarding. The proposal retains flower displays in the town centre and at Batford and at Southdown, providing value for money at significantly lower costs than what the previous displays were costing us. Our town ranger service work flat out and are extremely productive, but the work requirement greatly exceeds the capacity that they have to deliver that. It's worth noting that the rangers do many things that the contractors they replace did not have to do. And that includes, just to mention a couple, brushing the AGP twice a week, and also ensuring that the tennis courts are free of leaves and other debris on a daily basis. Financial savings created by this new approach to floral displays would enable Harpenden Town Council to recruit a much needed additional town ranger to support both the work that the new floral displays will create, but also the rest of the town ranger work programme delivered at the minute. And yes, the committee are being asked to consider.
Lovely, thank you. So obviously some of us were able to go on a little walkabout with Carl and Phil and look at some of these beds that have been referred to, which has been quite helpful. I think sort of having a sort of visual sort of feel for it. Has anybody got any questions or comments that they'd like to make on Philip has said and the recommendations?
I like the permanent planting, the mixture of shrubs and perennials. I think it looks really good, and it looks good throughout the year, really. And even the winter, it looks a lot better. I think it looks good.
Yeah, thank you.
As long as leaves are clear, which is always a perennial problem. I was just wondering if, having recruited this additional town ranger, whether there would be a possibility of extending floral displays to Batford a bit further. I'm thinking of our Batford survey, the survey
Yes,
that was
yeah.
done in Batford for the Vulnerable People Working Party. And there were quite a lot of complaints, oh, Harpenden gets everything.
Yeah, it's one of my things, as you know, as well. I quite like to see a little bit more done visually in Batford. With one of the tall displays is going there, isn't it, by where the tree is, and the sign. But I think isn't it? Am I correct in saying when I raised this with you, Philip, that it's to do with the fences and the location of the fences, which the
So,
railings.
So, Chair, the reason that we're looking at putting a lovely three-tier display down there is because at the minute the display down there is relatively small on the green there. It's obviously one-dimensional down on the ground. This will show up to everyone, including the passengers of passing vehicles and things as well. So in a way, it should hopefully be an improvement on what's down there currently. I always have an eye on the town clerk when I'm saying this, in case he disagrees with what I'm saying. But the thing about Batford area is we own a number of things down there, including 3 allotment sites and the whole brilliant Batford Springs local nature reserve as well, in which lots has been invested. The reason there is a town council floral display on the Batford Green is because we own that little bit of green as well. But a lot of the remainder of the public realm within Batford isn't owned by the Harpenden Town Council. And that's why we would be focusing on putting the three-tier display on Batford Green itself. Yeah. The other question that I was asked by the chair previously was around barrier baskets. Now, barrier baskets, they are quite spectacular, as we've seen within the town. You have to be very careful where you put them, though, because of obscuring visibility for the traffic of drivers. And the challenges you've got there, it's right on a busy junction. Lower Luton Road and Station Road, as you will all appreciate, are very busy roads. And in addition, you've got the added complication of the pedestrian crossing. Now, in the town centre, we have got some on barriers that are associated to pedestrian crossings, but we have to be really careful that they are only on the departure side of the crossing so that they don't prevent a driver from seeing a small child standing waiting at the crossing as they are approaching. And I think that the fact that that crossing is so close to that busy junction, that just makes it rather difficult to put more displays in there.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions? No. Okay, so that's that for the moment, isn't it, with Batford? I'm hoping, I mean, obviously we're miles off yet with the Crest Nicholson development, but should it go ahead, I'm hoping that there might be some sort of PLC for Batford Town Centre itself in terms of supporting that area and investing in it a little bit. But obviously we're miles off that, but it's just a thought. Okay, let's return back to what's asked of us. The recommendation is that the committee approve the new proposals for the summer floral displays shown in the table below at paras 3.9 to 3.14, and approve the use of surplus funds to recruit an additional town ranger to support these new works and the entire grounds maintenance requirements. All those in favour? Okay, so now we're going to move to the festive lights, which I think you should have been given a separate sheet by Philip. Okay, just before we start on this, what we're going to do here is, whereas it would be normal for us to make the decision the festive light displays, because this is such an important, well, all items are important. We just feel that we would like this to be, we'll make our recommendations, but we will then refer it to the full council meeting, with the exceptions of point 1 and 2, to approve. Okay, so Philip, if you'd like to take us through it.
Thank you, Chair. I think that you'll all be aware that festive lights, they're expensive, but they can also be quite complex as well. An assessment of our festive lights scheme has resulted in the several recommendations that you see before you today. A major component of the proposed new scheme would be for a new fun Christmas trail comprising of set piece displays that would be visited as people follow the fun trail throughout the town centre, which would impact the vibrancy of the town and encourage more people into the town centre. So the committee are being asked to approve new set pieces for the trail, but as the chair's just explained, you'll be decided on whether you'll recommend that for approval to council. Any trail could also encompass some of the other items that we've already got in the town. For example, Frosty the Snowman. I've managed to persuade the contractor to bring the snowman back next year. This was meant to be the snowman's last year because of vandalism and condition. Unfortunately, he has this year, he's had about 3 more holes punched through his body, but he will come back next year, so he could be incorporated with these other set pieces, as could the main Christmas tree and the items within the Century Garden too. So other important bits within this report show that committee is being asked to consider the matter of the pole mounted festoons around Church Green and what we should do with those. The options for the committee to consider are maintaining the status quo as they are. They did look really, really attractive in the dark at Christmas time. Or the second option would be to reduce the number of poles by 8. And the final option that you have is to consider whether to recommend removal of all the poles and festoons from Church Green. The only thing worth considering, I think, is that Church Green is always the primary focus of the Christmas Carnival switch on event, and you get thousands of people standing around that area. And if there isn't something there, festoons have been part of that for years. If there isn't something there, then I guess they've got the Christmas tree to look at, but there won't be the lights that they're used to in the same volume. That's introductory comments. I'm happy to talk about any aspects of this in more detail, which any of the councillors wish me to do.
So I think I'd quite like to move to the black poles, and because I think this is the area that's most controversial about what you've outlined. Not controversial, but we'll need more discussion. You've all had correspondence from Marina Kazanis, I think, and I've been in touch with her several times this week. And she's got an elderly relative that she's looking after, so she's not able to appear here in public. But she's asked me to read out something from her, and she's also provided you with the photocopies that are there on the table. So this is her comments, and I'll praise some of it because it refers to hanging baskets, which obviously we've just agreed aren't part of the floral display. I have lived in Harpenden for many years, and I strongly object to the installing of the tall black poles on Church Green and Leighton Green becoming a permanent fixture. Church Green and Leighton Green have been attractive, harmonious and historic green spaces in the very heart of Harpenden. The greens have been one of the features that give Harpenden its village feel, echoed in a quote from Wikipedia. Church Green in particular is an important iconic space in Harpenden, so much so that the first image of Harpenden that appears on Wikipedia is that of Church Green and the War Memorial. The small white posts with chains attached which surround the greens and other grassed areas in Harpenden have added charm to the centre of Harpenden and are also a very practical way of deterring people from walking on the grass. However, the 40 large black poles which were installed in 2024 now dominate the greens and are completely out of scale and out of character with both of the greens, especially when walking or sitting in those areas. The poles and black festoons also conflict visually and tower over the small white posts and chains below them. The War Memorial is a very important and significant monument on Church Green for many residents in Harpenden. However, tall black poles dominate and spoil the look of the memorial, and the festoons distract and intrude on views of it. The festoons also intrude on the views out from the green, for example, St Nick's School. I understand that people might want a great Christmas display of lights, but that should not be to the detriment of those lovely greens. The lights on the poles may look good at night for a very small part of the year, but during every single day of the year, during the daytime, one has to look at these unsightly poles. They spoil the look of the green, and it is now not particularly pleasant to sit or walk through Church Green or Leighton Green. Harpenden is a very attractive town with a special character, and Harpenden Town Council has done much to make Harpenden a good place to live with many beautiful green spaces. The historic traditional village atmosphere of the greens in the very centre of Harpenden is one of the aspects which makes Harpenden special and unique. However, this aspect of Harpenden currently appears to be undervalued and overlooked. I sincerely hope that councillors will not allow this unique character of Harpenden Greens to be spoilt. Harpenden Town Council states that it aims to create attractive public spaces. In keeping with that aim, please can I therefore strongly urge the councillors to preserve the character of the greens by totally removing the 40 unsightly black poles. Strive to find Christmas lights which can be taken when the Christmas season taken down when the Christmas season is over, so that the look of the greens is not spoilt for the rest of the year. So that's comments. Obviously, it's just one comment, but she feels very, very strongly about it. And as I say, I've had several email exchanges. I know she's been in touch with councillors in general. So I thought, in fairness, that should be read out. So let's move to this item, because I think some of the points that Philip has talked about are perhaps more straightforward in terms of the trail and some of the other things. But let's go to 3.21, the three options on the poles. Well, 3.17 gives you some figures there. Excuse me. So, who would like to make a comment or have any questions about what they feel? Jill.
I do take Ladies' points, and I know there have been other complaints made, and somebody in my road made a strong representation town clerk about the black poles. I think too there is a difference between black poles when they first went up. People were not sure what it was all about, and there were good reasons why they went up as they did, but and then them being festooned with Christmas lights. I was been taking a lot of soundings from people when the lights were on over Christmas, to neighbours and other people. And I think, universal feedback that people thought it looked absolutely beautiful. I think the problem is, and given the problems that we've got with highways and what have you, if we don't have something there, then Church Green is going to look very bare at a very key time in the town's calendar, and people have got used to having lovely lights around, even if they're not on black poles. I think the other thing is that when we did our tour around, we were talking about other ways in which you could light up that part of Harpenden during the rest of the year. And that coming together, I wondered whether or not we could perhaps explore the possibility of doing the compromise solution, which might be reducing number, but also during this year, trial some of those ideas, see what feedback we get. Perhaps again this Christmas, sorry, I've talked about Christmas in January, but there you go. You know, put the lights up again and then see what feedback we get from residents. But I think it's worth trying to use them whilst they're there and getting, you know, more feedback. I think this year may have been slightly exceptional in terms of people understanding the background to why they're there and what we can and can't do. I think it's worth, before we take them, you know, if we were minded to take them down, I think it's worth trying for another 12 months. You know, times like, I don't know, you said Valentine's Day, the summer, Remembrance Service, seeing what we could come up with, which might appeal to other people as well.
Anyone else?
I'm sorry, I think,
Patrick.
I think the lady actually mentions also could the polls not be taken down, but I remember the council officers giving the reasons why that wouldn't necessarily be practical. I was just wondering if you could repeat your arguments on that, you know, just the benefits of.
So yes, Chair, I can answer that. The poles that are on there have been permanently installed with concrete. It would be possible to install poles that have removable sockets, but on the initial installation, that would have cost around £240 per pole extra, which adds up to quite a few £1,000s extra. Then the other complication you have, or the other factor to take account of, is if they are removable poles, each time that the contractor had to come in to take it, it is actually a very complex operation for the skilled electrical contractors to take the festoons down and to put them back up again. So I think that on the sort of figures that they've estimated, we would be looking at an annual charge of probably getting on for £9,000 every time they had to be. Half of that would be taking them down and half of that putting them back up again. And if you did want to use them on other occasions, such as perhaps the food and drink festival, that would be another £9,000 to put them up and take them down again as well. So it's really it would really be for councillors to consider whether that sort of system would be cost prohibitive because of the initial extra overheads and then the cost of putting it up and down each time.
Yeah, and I think before you did mention the fact that the preparation of the Christmas lights usually has to start sometime like September as well. I think so. They would be up for quite a bit of time anyway, even if they were removable.
That's correct, Chair. The contractors that are involved in this type of work are very, very specialist, and they tend to do a great number of towns and parishes. So they could be serving up to 60 to 80 schemes. So they do have to start early, and it can take several weeks before they get taken down as well.
Thank you.
David, have you? What's your thoughts on the polls?
I like the idea of reducing the number slightly, on 3.17. I must admit, to begin with, the number of calls and emails that I received when they were initially installed was quite worrying, that people were accused me of destroying Arndon. But having seen what they look like with the Christmas lights and the possibility that we could be using them for lights, whether we can put hanging baskets on them when we've got when we do our plants and baskets, I don't know. But I think in time, people could get used to them, and I think it would work to the advantage of Harpenden. You know, we have a very pretty town that's supported, you know, in that respect. In conjunction with the thoughts that we're going to take over the planters as such, with the I think our rangers can protect the what we grow in the town and make them look better. Because having gone to St Albans recently and seen the displays outside the arena, you know, I'm horrified by the way some parts of our district are not looked after. But at least Harpenden, we win all the prizes because we look good.
Yeah. Okay. Philip, could you address that point about the hanging baskets?
So, Chair, there are places where those types of poles are used for hanging basket displays. Would have to recognise that councillors would have to consider any costs, extra additional costs for those. My understanding is that it would involve the fitting of specific brackets to the poles in order for hanging baskets to be fitted to them. The thing that we'd have to look into in a little bit more detail and consider carefully would be what height they have to be for highways requirements. The reason I say that is that the town council don't own any cherry pickers, and if they are above a certain height, then there would be, I think it's nearly £1,000 to hire a cherry picker, and that would be required to put the hanging baskets up. But the answer is yes, those poles are used in places for hanging baskets.
But at this stage, we're not intending to do that.
So at this stage, Chair, the proposal that I brought to committee tonight for floral displays didn't include hanging baskets.
Okay.
Fiona.
I mean, I'm in favour of a compromise, reduce the number, but retain most of them. We're talking about reducing it by 8, aren't we, I think? That seems the best way forward. There were a lot of complaints early on. I quite agree with David, but it did get muddled up with the parking issue, didn't it? And I think a lot of people seem to feel strongly about the War Memorial. So would they be not around the War Memorial? Is that right?
So, Chair, I went and surveyed it with our expert contractor last week. And it's more a case of reducing the number of poles in the line. So along the 1081 in front of the War Memorial, at a stretch, the contractor said we could safely remove 4 of those poles, but that wasn't. When we were looking at it, it wasn't a case of removing them all from the War Memorial end. It was thinning them out the best that we could. So it's those 4 taken out are taken out all the way along.
I see. And we did have an idea at one time of even having the lights on every evening throughout the year, didn't we? Wasn't that suggested?
Yeah, Chair. So I think where we would get to. So if the resolution that you recommend this evening relates to keeping either half or all of the poles, and that's approved by council, then we would be looking at what other uses we can make of them throughout the year, basically. So there are other, we can arrange for them to be lit up at other points. In theory, they could still be lit up now in the dark period, and that could go through to the spring.
Yeah.
There's no reason why we can do that. But of course, it kind of depends what we're going to have left, if you like. We did talk at one point about the potential of creating more of a kind of a tunnel effect by going across. I think Phil reflects on that in the report in the sense of we certainly wouldn't be able to lose any poles if we were to do that, and we would likely have to introduce more. And I think that's just while I've got the floor, Chair, if I
Yes.
can, just a general point on lots of things, but in particular things in the public realm. We've often got, really good aspirations and ambitions to make the town look really great, and we design things to sort of to do that. Then we almost have to have a bit of reality check in this sense. What can we do with Herts Highways, given that they put in place significant barriers, well beyond, in our view, well beyond what is required under regulations. Of course, in this case, there was sort of some resident views on the poles itself. So we often design something that we think would be ideal. We then sort of have the sort of stakeholder involvement, and then what comes out of that is the sorts of things you're talking about tonight. And if you do go down a route with the poles that you reduced it by 8, you could see this as a kind of a bit of a journey. We could see how it goes again this year in the context of the new floral display approach and everything else. And if you then felt that there was more that was needed in terms of a greater reduction and they weren't quite right, you could then look at that again. You're not tied down to making a decision this month that lasts for the next 5 years. So it's entirely possible to do that. And I think just on the warmer Roaring point, whilst Phil is quite right that the poles that are removed from the A1081 aren't all down the warmer end, but when you're removing 4 out of 10, that's quite a significant amount along that stretch. So I think that probably will make quite a visual difference. And in particular, when you look across, the other ones that will be reduced actually will have an impact on the kind of those that have said it's sort of cluttered and blocks the view through. So we think that will have a positive impact. In essence, we're removing around 30% of the poles. Whilst it's 8, 30% is quite a decent number. So yeah, you can see this as a journey. If you agree and recommend the 8 removal tonight, and council approve that, then we can see how it goes. We could see how other things, whether we keep it lit up for other periods. We can look at lighting schemes for midsummer events
You've got
and other things.
BE Day this year, haven't you, as well, which could be an
Yeah,
opportunity.
there's all those opportunities, Chair, and I think as Councillor Brosnan sort of alluded to before, the way that festive lights work, they go up pretty much early September. And as you would have seen, only this week are we still removing some things. So they're up for the best part of 5 months. So, the kind of idea of putting lights up a week before our event, which was some people's suggestion from the community, it's just not viable.
No.
And so it's a tricky balancing act. I think we would very much notice not having anything on Church Green. So this sort of the compromise may be the way forward. But equally, what could happen is the new trail that we're very much hoping to place at the heart of our festive light display. If that's a great success, actually that may make it easier in future years to do less on Church Green.
Yeah.
The trail could be expanded there, and you have an alternative approach. Our switch on event may have to, adapt and site people in different places for the actual switch on. So there's always things we can do and involve.
I like the idea of trying to reduce them, but also to sort of put it out there that we're watching this space, see how it looks, see how it moves forward. And that doesn't mean that the poles will be permanent. We'll just review it and just see how successful it is. And yes, there was some fantastic feedback on the lights at Christmas. And so perhaps, people's feelings have sort of mellowed a little bit on that. So I think are we all in agreement then on point 2 that we will reduce the number of poles by 8 on that item? Yes. So I just want to run through a couple of other things that are on this. Obviously, has anyone got any questions about what Carl's just referred to as the trail that we're going to do? Pictures were provided, with the at the back, with the snowman and the Father Christmas and the chair, etc. Any comments on that? Are we happy with that? The total cost of the set piece displays that'll be £20,000 for the total cost of 5. Any thoughts on that? Questions on that?
I think it looks fantastic. My only question is, given what's happened to Paul Frosty,
Yes.
are these going to be vulnerable to vandalism, or are they pretty robust?
So Chair, the answer to that is that our contractor tells me that these are strong steel framed and they are generally very robust. That we can't guarantee that they won't be attacked, but they are considered to be strong and robust.
Yeah, there's no getting away from what antisocial behaviour will do to assets that are put out there.
What's the situation as far as insurance concerned? So you invest £20,000 on some displays and somebody comes and sets them on fire. Is that £20,000 gone? You can't claim anything back, or because it's in the public?
Well, no, so essentially, Chair, all of our assets are insured.
Okay,
So when we have vandalism or we have issues, we consider it on a case by case basis
okay,
as to what we do, if you like. So, you know, in that scenario there will be the opportunity for us to make a claim
okay.
for these. The only thing I would just also add on the trail is that what these do add is something we don't have at the moment. And whilst they look lovely lit up, they're actually daytime interest as well.
Yes.
So the current scheme isn't the daytime scheme. The idea with the trail, in particular, is we want to connect this to local businesses, and in particular independent businesses. Similar thing that we've done in the past, on not festive light related, but on other subjects. You know, we've created a trail that relies on families taking, you know, a bit of paper with a stamp into a certain shop, and the shops are given a stamp on it, and you know, if you collect 8 stamps, then you go into a draw. So that's the sort of thing that we're looking at with the trail, to try to encourage people into the town. So into the town in the first place, staying for longer than they would otherwise, and also engaging local businesses. So these would be a daytime feature as well, whilst not lit up. You can get some lovely pictures with these. So they've got a real added benefit. It's also the way that most towns have gone now.
Yes, I've noticed.
Yes, it is the sort of preferred route for lots of places. And as I know, in my own sort of family, we go to one town every year, get the same picture with the same thing to
yeah.
the kids grow, and the kids are buzzing for it. It's a town that we wouldn't go to otherwise. So it had, you know, that's some of the sentiment behind why we think that this is a kind of a good one for.
Great.
Yeah, I think the trail's a really good idea, and this social media element, taking photos and putting them on social media, it would be lovely.
Right, that's great. So the other one, the crossroad displays, we've got a picture of some examples of what it could possibly look like. So at the back, and the proposal is to go for free. Any comments on that? They look rather nice.
Yeah, they do.
I prefer it not to have to be a castle, in the sense that we haven't got a castle, have we?
So Chair, these are actually Hertford's.
Oh, are they?
So
That's what they're
ours would be designed bespoke to whatever Harpenden wanted them to be.
They're nice.
Very good. What would we have?
Owen Farrell.
I think, Chair, that would be the next stage to decide what the design should be.
Yeah, lovely. And then the other thing that was new, or sort of new, is the wraparounds around the lamp column displays, the low risk. I'll just talk a little bit about that and what we were going to do.
So Chair, we've outlined the challenges of dealing with the Highways Authority regarding our festive displays on lamp column. Or wraps around columns, because they don't have a sail effect, windage factor, because they are light, you don't actually have to have the columns structurally tested. So one of the risks that we do away with by having these sort of displays is that there is not the risk of us paying for structural testing to find that it failed and we can't put a display on it. So we can put these on, and they are also, compared to most festive lights, these are actually quite good value as well. They're quite cheap compared to most of the other displays that we have.
Right.
So I don't know whether it was noticed this year, but they're There are a few of these in the middle of Church Green and on Leighton Road, and they tend to match the pole-mounted festoon twinkly lights that we have.
Okay, straightforward, yeah, nice. Any comment on the decorations, the Christmas tree decorations allocated £2,000 to make it bigger and brighter and more appealing?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good idea.
lovely. So that's fine. So I'll move to the recommendation then. As I said to you before, we will refer to council to approve. The committee is asked to note the status of the existing display and the significant constraints in providing a festive lights display in Harpenden. Note the existing parts of the scheme that will remain in 2025 as set out in paragraph 3.9. The rest of these points, as I said, will be referred to full council. But our recommendation is to approve 3 new Crossroad Christmas light displays as set out in paras 3.10 to 11. Approve the purchase of 5 new set piece Christmas displays as set out in paras 312 to 313. Go for option 2, which is to remove 8 poles, black poles with regards to Church Green as set out in paragraph 314 to 321. Agree not to progress with the additional black poles adjacent to the 1081, which we didn't really go into, but I think you've all read that. Recommend that we will utilise the lamp columns with low risk wrap designs. And finally, and approve the purchase of new decorations for Church Green Christmas tree as set out in para 3.28. And importantly, to approve the release of the appropriate reserves as set out in paragraph 4.5. All those in agreement? Yeah. So let's move on to item Arts and Culture Forum, which is on page 31. So this is just to actually note the progress of the forum and approve the proposed areas of focus for the forum group. You want to say something?
Just very brief, Chair, and it is very brief. I was just going to point out the obvious, really, that the report provides an update on the focus of the Arts and Cultural Forum. And as you will see in there, that the focus that they would like to proceed with is communication, young people's art and culture, and venues for hire.
Any comments, Fiona?
I sit on the forum or the working party and attended the forum. It was a very successful event held at the Eric Morecambe Centre and with Kate Barton from the Eric Morecambe Centre there. And it's a fantastic networking opportunity for people involved in the arts in Harpenden. And there's a lot of enthusiasm, so that's great. I just noticed resource implications. Significant officer time will be required to deliver the priorities. And I just wonder if there are any thoughts on the plan for that.
Yeah, Chair, so that is a very good question, and I'm glad you asked because I was going to give some thoughts on that anyway. So, so the work around the Arts and Cultural Forum is something new for the Town Council. It's in your business plan. It's not something the Town Council was focused on before, and in my view, it's a really brilliant thing that we're looking at. When we set out, when the business plan was approved, we set out a kind of delivery plan. And that looked at officer resources and the arts and culture, along with the supporting vulnerable people work. The early stage was scoping what it was going to look to do and look to achieve, as was the supporting local businesses working party as well. So we've clearly got to the stage now where we've carried out the scoping and we've done that within existing resources, if you like. So in the case of this one, it's very much been led by Sarah Brimley, our projects and community manager. Along with support from Harriet and Faye, our events team. As we get to the stage now where there are the focus priority areas, clearly, whilst these are just very short and sweet, three succinct areas, there's work and actions that's got to go on behind the scenes. So what we need to make sure we do is, whilst we improve these sort of in principle, we need to make sure that we have got the right capacity in order to bring them to life. Because what we don't like to do, and we never do here as an officer team, is say we're able to do something without being able to deliver it. So some of these, the communication element is something that will fall to our comms officer, Claire. So that's fairly straightforward. We've made some good progress on that already, because that's largely around promotion and utilising our existing skills and our existing website. The two other pieces of work that will require significant officer time. And the crucial bit is that work doesn't necessarily sit with anybody at the moment. So for those of you that may have read my sort of business plan update, which goes to council next week, which came out this week, and when you do read it, you'll see this point about capacity is one that is coming up a number of times now, because we are almost 2 years into our business plan, and we've carried out a lot of our scoping work along with delivering our projects and our business as usual. And so we're getting to the point now to make sure that we've got the right capacity in the right areas in order to deliver the arts and culture and all these other things. So for those of you, forgive me, I know Jill, Councillor Haynes chairs the HR committee. For those of you that anyone else at the HR committee, this is a point around capacity that was considered at a meeting earlier on this month. And it's something that the HR committee is going to be looking at, something I'm looking at, partly in light of Sarah obviously leaving very soon, which does add to the significant officer implications. So really that's kind of the sort of the long context to why we put that in the report. We will come up with a plan to make sure we can deliver all this, but it does very much link into the work of the HR committee and any recommendations that the HR committee might make to council in the sort of coming weeks and months to sort of bring this to reality. I think the last thing I would just say on that is that we've made brilliant progress in a very short space of time so far, but it's really important that our business plan is a 4-year business plan, and we've still got 2 years to go, and we can't deliver everything right up front. There are some things that will be year 3 and 4, and so while some of these things will be some quick wins, some of it might be a little bit longer, and we might not expect to see outcomes in the next 3 to 6 months. So there will be a plan to make all this happen, but there's just quite a lot of work going on behind the scenes at the moment as to what that looks like.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, just one other comment, that at the forum, someone, I can't remember which organisation he was from, I'm afraid, but he rather miserably said, oh, the council tried this before and it didn't work. This must have been years ago. But it is important, I'm very keen, I'm very interested in this personally, and I'm very keen to see, and I'm glad to hear that you're saying that you really want it to be a success.
Yeah, without doubt. And I think the forum element, Chair, well, that's the easier bit to do. Coordinating, facilitating the forum.
Yeah.
That's fairly straightforward. It's just what sits behind these 3 priorities. What does it mean? What is the level of work that's required? Is it a one-off? Is it ongoing? That's the sort of thing we're working out. In my time here, I haven't heard of an arts and culture forum in this way. What that person might have been referring to is that when the EMC was being redeveloped, there was talk at the time of the district council setting up an arts and culture user group. So essentially a group of local representatives that would help shape what goes on at the EMC. So I think that came out of one of the charrettes many moons ago. So perhaps that's what they were talking about. So this could be one of those that when they say council, they probably mean the district, because it's rarely do we say we're going to do something and not do it. So this will be a success. It's been brilliant so far. Not least just getting that volume of organisations together is a good thing. And you see again in the business plan, we're planning similar with local businesses, with sports clubs and with others. Whereas, the town council doesn't always have to spend loads of money to make things happen. We can just bring people together and facilitate action. And that's what the Arts and Culture Forum is all about. And the brilliant thing is no one's ever done it before. And it's something from a legacy point of view at the end of this business plan, it will be a real success.
Lovely, thank you. Anybody else, any comments left? Okay, we'll move to the recommendation. The committee is asked to note the progress of the forum and approve proposed areas of focus for the forum group. All those in favour? So we'll move now to the item 7.6 on your agenda, volunteer strategy. The report attached you'll find on page 33.
Thank you, Chair. The work by volunteers is very much appreciated by Town Council. This report, as you will have seen, presents the Town Council's aspirations to develop the volunteering opportunities and the capacity for volunteers to support the work of the Town Council further. An exciting bit in there is the concept of developing principal volunteers. If we have principal volunteers who would be like supervisor volunteers, it means that we can deliver more through volunteers with less input from the officers. So that's a real big advantage. At the minute, our Green Spaces development officers deliver 2 volunteer project days a month. If you've got principal volunteers that can deliver additional ones to that, it won't stop the Green Spaces development officers delivering what they deliver. It will be additional to what they deliver. So that would be really good. So we've reviewed the Town Council's volunteer policy, which is attached here as an appendices. And we've also produced a development plan for volunteers going forward. In addition, we've also updated the volunteer role profiles for the 3 volunteers that we actually have. So we're asking committee to consider what's being presented here and to approve the updated policy and the new development plan.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from anybody before we move to?
The principal volunteer that's taking on responsibility. Are they going to be doing things that do they need to be insured and stuff like that? Like,
so although the development plan might not have gone into all of that detail, that's obviously all the things that will have to be looked at as we're going through the process of developing that. And I was looking at it again earlier today, and that development plan is really challenging. There's a lot of work in there, and a lot of the things have got to be done in the next few weeks, and we will do that. But you're quite correct that there's a lot of detail that we've got to work out as well.
Chair, just to be clear though, all of our volunteers are insured under the Town Council insurance, so then the lead volunteer will be the same.
Yeah.
It's just that term, principal volunteer. I've had a lot of volunteering experience, and some people rather object to having someone with a fancy title who's just a volunteer telling them what to do. It depends on the person doing it, whether they're sensitive to that sort of thing. I just wondered whether you could call them volunteer coordinator or something like that. It's just a thought. Just a thought.
Yes, Chair, that's something I'll make a note of and consider. One thing that I did change when we were reviewing the policy this time is that although this has been to committee in about 2021 and was approved then, it was clearly taken from a wildlife trust and adapted by the Town Council. And a further adaptation that I've just made to it was it referred to principal volunteers and support volunteers. And I took the word of support out because for the same reasons that you're indicating. If you're a volunteer, you're a volunteer.
You're equal in a way, really.
Yes. So
can I also ask if you've got any volunteers in mind at the moment for these roles, these more supervisory roles? Have you got any existing volunteers who might like to do it?
So the approach that we'd like to take, Chair, with this is we've got several years' experience of working with volunteers, and as a consequence, from observation at the project days, some of our officers have got views on who might make good principal volunteers or volunteer coordinators. And as a consequence, we will probably first of all make an approach to people that our officers have identified as likely to be suitable to see whether they would be interested in that.
Yeah.
Okay, any further questions? No, we'll move to the recommendation. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Chair. Can I just clarify, because obviously when you go to the recommendations, it says subject to any amendments. So I would just seek clarification on whether you want me to make that amendment in terms of the terminology.
Well, I think you want to explore that, do you?
I could explore it further, but if.
Yeah, what's views on that? Other people I mean, at the moment it's recorded as being principal volunteer. Would you like Philip to reconsider the use of that word and an alternative word?
Coordinator is a good word because it doesn't imply a management role. It just is an opinion.
Yeah, it's extra work, coordinating, but it doesn't suggest that
That
they're
you're
bossing
superior.
you about tremendously.
It's usually the type of role that nobody else wants.
David, any thoughts?
I like the way you've done so far. I'm happy with that.
And just to clarify, they would have a leadership role on the project days that they'd lead. So it's in addition to any arrangements that might have to be made, they would be the people leading the health and safety briefing and then supervising the operation that happens on that day.
Okay, so going back to the recommendation 2.11, committee's asked to approve this and on the volunteer policy with the amendment that the word principal is changed to coordinator. Also asked to approve that the volunteer development plan from 2025 to 2027. 2027. All those in favour? Thank you. Right, we'll move now to agenda item 7.7, the health and safety tree survey tender, which you'll find on page 56. Okay, thank you.
Yes, Chair, a new tree survey is required to be completed between early May and July this year in order to comply with our tree policy. The tender specification is attached to the report and committee is being asked to approve that tender. A tender process will then be run and the successful tenderer will be brought back to committee for approval in March.
Thank you. Any questions? Anything? Tender. Yes. Nothing. David, anything you wanted to add on that?
Happy with the way it's operated in the past.
Super. I'll move then to the recommendation. The committee is asked to approve the proposed tree survey tender specification as set out in Appendix A. All those in favour? Thank you. Okay, so we'll now move to item 7.8, which is the new cricket net, for which I will be leaving the room and Patrick will step up. I don't know if you might still stay there, but do it unless you want to come sit here.
I'll stay here.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, not detailed.
Yep.
So it looks like the Hartland Common Cricket Club wants to build a couple of new bowling practice nets, isn't it? And, believe that there's a few quibbles with how they've gone about it. Would you like to look at that?
Yes, Chair. It's exactly as you've just said there, that the Harpenden Common Cricket Club, they would like to erect new cricket nets on Harpenden Common. As you've seen from the report, They didn't follow the usual process of first gaining Harpenden Town Council's permission as owner. And if they had done that, then one of our green spaces development officers would have been able to give them considerable help in ensuring that the application they had to make to the Secretary of State for this would be correct. The cricket club are now fully aware of the disappointment that the town council has regarding this. And it's of note that this week they have sent a written apology to the town council about the way that they have handled this. That all said, the town council officers do not object to the new nets, and this committee is being asked to approve them and give consent.
Chair, if I could just add one thing to just what Phil said there. So ordinarily, when somebody doesn't follow the right process, we wouldn't necessarily make a point like we have. But just to say, the reason why we are having this instance is because inadvertently they're potentially going to get their application rejected, and they're going to. The reason for that is because they didn't seek the advice and guidance that we had in the first place. So, that's why we insist that these processes are followed, not because we're some hierarchical bureaucracy.
Yeah.
It's just that actually we can really help. And with every application that's gone in the common, we've been the ones that have guided that through, in recent years for a long time. So that's the only reason why it's a disappointment, because ultimately it's likely now to cause further work for the cricket club.
Yeah.
When actually in the first place, if the process was followed, we could have helped them.
Was it just an oversight? They didn't realise what they had to do? Or?
I think what happened in this sense, they had one of their an active member who has their own organisation in this sort of world of planning, and they were leading on the application, sort of pro bono, if you like, and potentially got a little bit carried away, thinking this is how you do things, but actually it's not quite how you do things when you look at common land. So the intention is kind of, it wasn't sort of disrespectful, but I just think in their enthusiasm for trying to get on with it, they've inadvertently kind of maybe tripped themselves up. We may be able to rescue it kind of mid-application, because you do get queries come back and opportunities to comment on things. So we may be able to help rescue it, or it may have to sort of start again. But we'll help as best we can with whatever scenario.
I noticed that they've said something about building a fence in the section D1, or they've put the word fence in the section D1. But is there a fence being built? Because there was nothing in the section D2.
I believe that. I think that refers to the surround of the net structure itself.
Oh, right. Okay.
But Chair, I think that's a good point. There's lots of areas like that lack a bit of clarity,
Yeah.
that we think may well come back because of the lack of clarity. And there's also some language that's used that probably may not be helpful. So there's language in there somewhere that says something like that this will be of benefit to the common. Well, actually, it won't be of benefit to the common. That's not the right way of putting it. It'll be a benefit to the cricket club, and as officers, we don't have any issue with it. But language that it will benefit the common as a green space is probably slightly wider the mark. So there's things like that when it lands at the Secretary of State, it's things like that they look at that may cause them some issues. So
Right.
yeah, so there's a few things in there that probably need a bit more clarity, that we think that's why it may come back. It may not. It might all go through swimmingly. But I think ultimately this evening, Chair, we're asking committee to
just approve. Yeah.
approval for it.
Okay. Okay. So shall we take the vote?
Happy with it?
Yeah, we're happy with that. Okay.
Chair, I'll go and fetch the other chair if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, we now move on to, item 8, which is exempt business. So do we resolve to move to exempt business?